You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from the past week as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google, Podbay, Speaker, and iHeartRadio. I'm Miranda Morales, one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and I'm going to bring in my co-hosts of the show. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going fantastic. How's it going for you, Miranda?
It is going very well, Dusty. I'm very excited for this week's show. We got a lot to cover. But we can't do that without the third member of this team, which is who?
Who?
Who am I talking about? That is the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Me! It's me! I'm that guy.
Anytime you say it's me, it just brings me back to Vince McMahon saying he was the higher power. It was me,
Austin. It was me all along.
So,
probably not the best reference.
Yeah, sorry. It just speaking of higher power, some of you may not know, but of course the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of luchacentral.com, which is operated and owned by what we call the boss man, Kevin Kleinrock. Last week, I'm going to blame a lot of this on Brendan, making fun of him. I had no part in this. So I would
yeah, that's it.
But we joke, we can't let the boss man know we were making fun of him, or that I would say maybe not making fun, critiquing apparently his culinary skills. It's not my place to judge because I don't cook, but we're just going to keep on rolling before he notices that maybe we're poking fun at him. So usually we kind of banter, and you can kind of consider this banter, but he can't fire us during the middle of the show. So we're just going to jump into it. No, we do have a lot to cover this week, including we do have some news from Kevin Kleinrock himself. Stay tuned to later on to the show to hear more information about that. But we're going to kick off our show like we do every week, and that's the road back to shows with Brendan.
Hey, yeah, so we do have the road back to shows. I don't know why I wasn't looking at that section of my notes, but hey, I'm there now. Let's with this one. Mexico is still red. It's still red.
Yeah.
It's happening in lots of places around the world. People just are
the post-holiday bloom.
They all had to go home and see mom and dad and all of that and think that it was going to be a big deal, and unfortunately it is. So we probably still won't be seeing any lucha coming out of Mexico City for another 2 weeks. Well, probably a week by the time this goes up. That's the nature of it. We were at this point once before. Everybody shut their shows down. Most people were very good about it. A couple people ran secret shows. I'm seeing far fewer secret shows this time around, hearing about far fewer secret shows this time around. So I feel like maybe, and I'm crossing my fingers, I know this is all audio so nobody can see that, but I'm crossing my fingers that we're getting closer to what we need to time. And then I have a quick Septimo Dragon update. So his father went on social media and he explained that Septimo had not one, not two, but 4 different surgeries before he was released earlier this week. He, however, has been released from the hospital after, so as I reported last week's show, it was an auto accident, and his liver was damaged. So he's been released. He's expected to make a full recovery. The worst of it is behind him, but it's probably going to be a while because as someone who had a month in a hospital and 4 surgeries a while back, they didn't even want to think about going to work and sitting in a chair for a full month after that. So, like, getting into the ring and hopping around is going to be a definite no-no. Yes. He's a strong guy and a fighter, so I'm sure he's going to push his way back as fast as he can, but definitely going to be a little while, and wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, definitely.
And we alluded to the fact that we're going to have Kevin talking later, so I'm just going to drop a hint here. AAA did some things as well this week on YouTube, so Dusty will have more on that later in the show, but AAA is making moves, and that is, since that is part of our road back, I figured I'd at least bring it up. But I'm going to move on to more fun stuff for me. There's a Lucha Meme Show, which Jonathan Gresham and several of the pure talent pool from ROH are going to be appearing at, and he did an interview about that. So there's going to be, where is it? Friday, January 22nd on IWTV. There's a Lucha Meme Show featuring notable names from Lucha like Ricky Marvin, Arrow Boy, Extreme Tiger, Aramis, Gino Medina, Lowrider, Mecha Wolf, and Blue Demon, as well as Gresham and several of the pure wrestlers that we saw in the pure tournament. And so I'm already excited about that. But Gresham in the interview had this quote that I wanted to read here. I look at the way in Mexico, wrestling in Mexico used to be and how it is now. I don't mean it is an attack on anyone, but I remember when fighters fought like fighters. Now, many of them have adopted the independent style of America. It's identical to what boys do in England or America. And I mean, I don't fully agree with that. I think that Rey Mysterio back in the day brought the style that we now view as the West Coast, views the independent wrestling style to America. But his point is still valid. It all became very homogenized. So it's very interesting to see him trying to bring back a lot of that grappling style he had in the interview page. There was footage from his match with Virus, which is just a technical masterpiece. If anybody enjoys watching people go hold for hold and seeing all those llaves, you can't go wrong with those two guys in the ring together. And I kind of feel like that's what we're going to see in this Lucha Meme Show. So that's Friday, January 22nd on IWTV. I will probably be there. So, keep an eye out for me to say things on that. That's all. I just wanted to share all of that. That was my excitement for big shows that are coming up, assuming, and I'm knocking on wood here, that COVID doesn't shut that down. Yeah. And that's my road back to shows.
Thank you, Brandon, for both the road back to shows and the indie roundup. Make sure you stay tuned to luchacentral.com for any additional news that may be coming over the next week.
Miranda, you got a tiny bit ahead of me. That was the road back to shows. I still have one other thing.
I thought you did. Look, because I saw that in the notes. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No. That is a different
twice,
story.
Okay. That's my bad.
There's a different story about
Okay.
No worries. I should have been clearer about that. I realize what I did now, and we will fix that. For everyone listening, we have a little rundown sheet we do, and the only notes in there are Lucha memes. And I'm going to start off by the indie roundup by mentioning that Lucha Memes on IWTV, as I mentioned last week, has put up several of their matches, several of their shows. including the Negro Navarro show that we had talked about previously on here. So that was what that note was about. I rewatched some of those matches. It's still good stuff. Definitely worth your time to go see that. And the reason I'm talking about Lucha on here is because, as I mentioned before, not a lot else has been going on. There is a Lucha Time episode. They did a short one. I'm gonna my note about the arena, because that was the first thing I looked at, is there's still way too many people in the gym, but this was likely pre-recorded before Mexico went red, so I give them a half a pass. If they still are putting up episodes with all of this as big a crowd as I'm gonna need confirmation that these are pre-recorded, or I'm gonna stop talking about them too. But we did have 2 matches on this show. We had Redimido versus Vertigo versus Baby Extreme and a 3-way of suicide dives. It was, everything you'd expect from 3 younger guys on this card, and fantastic energy going into it. Finish was pretty bonkers, where you had Baby Extreme Vertigo got taken out after Redimido hit him with a DVD off the second rope, so a Death Valley driver, and then he just hit an ordinary old sit-out power bomb for the finish on Baby Extreme, like just a sit-out power bomb.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the level of energy that was going.
When people win with one of the lesser or the transitional moves, because then you never know when the ending's coming. Like, it kind of helps.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I keep saying but I'm doing it semi-sarcastically. Like, that's a big high-impact move, but because of all the high-impact moves that we saw, like, to your point, I didn't know that was going to be the finish, other than the fact that maybe because the second rope DVD still had Vertigo on the outside of the ring. I was like, maybe this will be it, and sure enough, it was. Easy to find. It's on the YouTubes. The other match was Arvac and Core against Bomba and Granada against Sick Boy and Medico Brujo. So it's 3 tag teams. Everybody brought weapons to the ring, but Arvac and Core, I don't know if either of you have seen them yet, but they seem to be a reply to the Viking Raiders experience or anything else. They're coming out with Viking gear, and that meant that they brought shields with them. So when people were trying to hit them with pipes, they just put the shields up and then chased them out of the ring. It was fantastic.
I like that.
And then they brawled for a little while. And it's a Texas style. Everybody's bringing weapons. Everybody's going at it. Unfortunate for brawling really plays into a group whose tag team name or faction name is the Hardcore Crew. So Sick Boy and Medico Brujo managed to get the win after lots of chaos. It was a fantastic match. The shield spot at the beginning really just had me popping, so I figured I'd cover that. So there we go. That was the indie roundup. We can move on.
And that is completely my bad. My deepest apologies about that.
No worries. I will be better with my notes.
Well, again, a big thank you to Brandon, always kicking off our show with both the Road Back to Shows and the Indie Roundup. So, though we got more to talk about, before we do that, we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who's going to bring us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Math, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Masked Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
As always, a huge thank you to Denise Salcedo, letting us know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, well, Dusty's going to take us around a little trip to a place that we call SmackDown and Raw, highlighting this week in WWE.
Yeah, well, first on SmackDown, we had some Lucha news for a change. You know, it's been a real drought. Yeah.
What?
We had Rey Mysterio. He appeared in a gauntlet match for the number one contendership for the Universal title at Royal Rumble against Roman Reigns. Like, I don't even know if we wanted him to win that. I mean, I can see why he might want to win it, but you know what I mean? Like, who's going to beat Roman right now? But anyway, I digress. The Ray opened the match, which again, that's also never great when you're in a gauntlet match. But commentary really helped kind of by talking about how Ray had the strongest chance of anyone to win from that number one entry due to his conditioning and his longevity in the business. And this led to two matches within the gauntlet match. First up was Sami Zayn, and then a second one, a more legitimate match, with Shinsuke Nakamura. After Sammy had a really long promo about how he was a victim of conspiracy and had a camera crew documenting him all the time, Ray just made super quick work of him. It was like, you know, diving drop kick, 619, top rope frog splash, took about 5 seconds. And before we had time to process that, Shinsuke Nakamura was already on his way to the ring. And this was my favorite part of the entire gauntlet match, honestly. Ray had some amazing seated sentons and a nice 619, but Shinsuke was able to get his knees up on Ray's frog splash and then roll that into a crazy arm bar, and it forced Ray to tap out. It was the New Japan Shinsuke we kind of remember from old. It was awesome. Yeah. And afterwards, we saw Corbin come out. He kind of cheap shot at Dominic and then attacked Ray in the ring before his segment. So I guess we're still going to see some Rey Mysterio Corbin thing going on. I thought that was more of a Murphy Corbin thing, but I guess they didn't abandon that. We just haven't seen Aaliyah or Murphy lately or heard anything about it. So I guess that's where that's at. But at the end of the match, Adam Pearce won the gauntlet match. He's backstage at WWE now. He's occasionally on television, but he was NWA champ for a long time, for like 3 years.
Yes.
And he had some great matches. His reign was ended by Blue Demon. And,
Who's that guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, he's had some great matches. And if you want to check those out, he's done a lot of lucha work and wrestled against luchadors, and it's worth checking out. And good, to Adam Pearce, like perennially, they even said it on TV. Like he was the guy that for whatever reason just wasn't good enough for WWE. They just didn't have anything for him. And now here he is, main eventing Royal Rumble against Roman Reigns for a Universal title match all these years later. Like, that's pretty cool. And I'm happy for him there. I'm glad he gets his moment. Then we had Monday Night Raw, and that was basically nothing. Lucha House Party briefly appeared in a throwaway backstage segment with Matt Riddle, but at least they got a little bit of TV time, show their faces, hopefully draw continued interest in their work. Like they're putting in some other work around WWE, so maybe they're getting the idea across that these guys are backstage all the time and could show up anywhere. Who knows? Interesting. And then we had Angel Garza. So after Raw, they didn't have him on Raw for whatever reason, Angel appeared on Raw Talk, and a straight up bizarre segment where he again professed his love for Sarah Schreiber. And while R-Truth, who was his enemy last week in the 24/7 title chase, they seemed to be cool enough with each other. But R-Truth stacked gummy worms on Garza's hair and shoulders the whole time. It was just very strange. If you have the opportunity and enjoy things that are just unusual and kind of inexplicable, you should check it out. But if you don't, like we already explained what happened. Angel was also on WWE Main Event on Hulu this week, and he won a match against Akira Tozawa. It was, kind of what you'd expect from these guys. It was a very quick, well-paced match. Only lasted about 5 minutes. The back and forth was fantastic. Some of Garza's work was, some of his best in WWE. They just clicked together. It was like a sprint. It didn't last long, but it was a great match. And, if you have Hulu and get the chance to check it out, I don't know if it ends up on the network. I think it does at some point, but yeah, check it out. And then after that on Main Event, they had his cousin. He calls him Cherubin, but we know him as Humberto Carrillo, and he was up in the main event against Slapjack with Mustafa Ali. And it took an Ali intervention to win. Like they had to double team Humberto to get that win. But it was just, like Slapjack and T-Bar and like, holy cow, this is just, ugh. And it's like they found some kid's notebook from 1998 and they were like, this is good. Let's use this. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the whole thing. It was going somewhere and then it wasn't. But that was kind of our WWE content for the week. Like, hopefully, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just want to break it. It was just posted not too long ago by WWE. We are going to see Rey Mysterio on this Friday's SmackDown against King Corbin.
Oh, excellent. Yes. Yeah. So, we'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. Also, they do make the contract signing for Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. I kind of laugh if I say it because it just makes it a bit funny, but it's a contract signing, so something's going to go down.
Right. I mean, that's just it. We know that this is all just going to be kind of a little by the numbers, but I'm looking to it big Roman Reigns as a heel, so.
Yeah, I mean.
I had a couple things on the Rey Mysterio family. I heard a couple people speculating on this, so none of this is news. I don't want to report to any of this news, but people are saying that Aaliyah's on a part-time deal. They haven't been using her on TV because she's been busy with school or other things, so they don't can't explain the Murphy absence in this theory, but
Yeah.
that makes sense to me that they'll do that. And so it puts the whole thing into a weird place where is Ray going to be the placeholder for this feud? I mean, they do that, but that doesn't seem like a good use for him, and they haven't been really doing much Dominic either. So
yeah, he wasn't in his gear at all. He was just wearing clothes, like street clothes at ringside, and he had such a promising start for them not to be doing anything right now. I mean, even if they just put him in a tag team, it'd seem more satisfying than what we're getting now.
So he still has, because of that, because of where he was at, he has the potential to beat Randy Orton, the youngest world's champion ever.
Yeah.
It was the thing they were talking about. But with this momentum, it seems really unlikely, because his birthday is right around like summer, like WrestleMania time. So with this zero momentum and not a lot of story going, it would be hard to put him into a feud, especially against a Roman Reigns.
Yeah, that's true. And
just interesting stuff.
That's what I felt about the gauntlet match too. Even if he'd won, he'd have just been fed to Roman Reigns, like a goldfish to a shark. And
why not let Adam Pearce do that right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfectly
nothing to lose there. It's perfect spot for the moment. While they want him to be the guy, and he's doing a great job as a heel. I think if they had done that earlier, people would have been much kinder to the whole Roman Reigns thing. Mm-hmm. But I think everything they've got's kind of perfect right now, except for, whatever they're doing with Dominic. We'll see what happens. I hope we see more of him soon in the near future. And hopefully more Angel. He seems to be the guy that for whatever reason they just won't pull the trigger on for Raw, and he could be the guy if they would just let him. And so, I don't know. There's a lot of mysteries right now in WWE.
We don't have time for that. Overlord Kevin, Overlord Carter erection.
Well, that was this week in WWE. You can find the results for both Raw and SmackDown on luchacentral.com. So if you don't get to watch the shows, you can get your results at luchacentral.com. You know what you can also find at luchacentral.com and get results for? AEW, both Dark and Dynamite. So Dusty, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, first up we had the Tuesday night offering of AEW Dark. The first match that we'll talk about, they're a little bit out of order. No, they might be. I guess they're actually in order. But anyway, I digress. Was Ryzen and Fuego del Sol versus Jurassic Express with Marco Stunt at ringside. Jurassic Express are technically the number 2 ranked AEW tag team right now, with Trent Beretta, injured, and Chuck Taylor doing the young boy thing for Miro. So they were actually number 2, but with them out of commission, Jurassic Express, who were number 3, kind of step into that de facto number 2 spot. But commentary didn't really press on that, or how cool that was, or what it meant with their feud with FTR. They were dedicated to a weird who's on first type thing about the number 1 wrestler, and I can't remember, the whole scam Florida or something like that. And it was Fuego del Sol, but Ryzen was from there, and he was only the number 3 favorite, but Fuego was from Mobile, Alabama, and he was their second favorite luchador. It went on and on. And if you thought this was the week that he'd finally hit the tornado DDT and win, you'll be disappointed, because following an assisted powerbomb, Jungle Boy got the submission. They looked fantastic. I love seeing the Jurassic Express, but especially the pairing of Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. That's the most interesting pairing, obviously. And I really think that they could be at least the next team, maybe not the team to take the gold, but the next team to give the Young Bucks a real run for their money with the titles. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And then we had the Dark Order versus Shawn Dean, Zach Clayton, Adam Priest, Danny Limelight, and Very Morales. I don't know how many 10-man matches they've had on Dark, but I feel like this is only the 4th or 5th they've ever done. Like, that's pretty rare. But Danny Limelight, despite all the talent, Danny Limelight was the real star, both of his team and of the match as a whole. It was fantastic. Eventually, though, it ended up with Adam Priest getting decimated by Uno and Grayson, and that gave the Dark Order the victory in 8 minutes. Went really fast. Great match. If you like Danny Limelight, definitely check that out. He's on his way up in AEW, and this is going to be one of your few chances to see him on Dark when he's not, the guy. He's on his way there. And then the next match, we had Alex Reynolds and John Silver of the Dark Order versus Casey Navarro and El Australiano, who was Australian Suicide in AAA. He wrestled here as El Australiano. It was initially kind of unknown if that was due to TNT standards and practices, like not liking the name or censoring it. But according to Lucha Blog / Cubs fan, it was due to the Lucha Libre Factory Made Ventures lawsuit, and that they kind of owned the name Australian Suicide in the United States. But he came to America on his own. He got his own work visa. He came on his own. He used his own connections to get a match with AEW. So I have a lot of hope and best wishes for him to branch himself out internationally. This was a really good match. Scorpio Sky was on commentary, but it was more of a showcase for the Dark Order, Reynolds and Silver, and they handily picked up the win. And we had on Wednesday, AEW Dynamite New Year's Smash Night 2. And then we talked a little bit about it in Dark, but here we got FTR versus Jurassic Express. This was a really fun match. It was interesting to see Jungle Boy in the role of the more experienced member of the tag team, because despite, and he, not only was he the older, but Marco Stunt, he's usually pretty great, but I felt like he was just off his game Wednesday night. He had a couple moments where he slipped, and his timing, it just felt like he was never able to get his rhythm. Maybe that was intentional. FTR picked up the win with some assistance from Tully, and it's obvious this is building to a program between FTR, Jurassic Express. Whoever, kind of comes out on top of this is the new number 1 contender. And I feel like you can't win the gold until you beat the previous winners. So I'm excited for this and excited for some good, legitimate tag team wrestling. I think when we get our next match with, obviously it'll be Luchasaurus involved with Jungle Boy, I think it'll be fantastic. And we'll really get to see a tour de force between these two teams. And then next up was actually, I'll talk about it next, but it was our main event. It was the AEW Tag Team, or TNT rather, Championship match between Darby Allin and Brian Cage. And this was a great match. Like, we've all seen Cage wrestle smaller guys on Lucha Underground. You've seen it in AAA. A lot of us have seen him wrestle in the Indies somewhere against smaller guys. And he showed again why he's just one of the best of his size to do it. Everything he did looked great. There was a great moment early on where Darby thought he was using the suicide dives to his advantage, but on the third one, Cage just shook it off like a feather brushing up against him, caught Darby by the head and transitioned it into a suplex. It was so cool. And the story in the match was basically that Darby was too scrappy to die. Cage was sure that wasn't true, so he just kept kind of power bombing him over the ropes. He threw him over the ropes at one point, but in the end, it wasn't enough, and Darby won the match. And so I don't know where we go from here. He successfully defended. Cage is obviously mad. Taz was obviously upset. There's a lot going on there. We'll see. Exciting stuff. But the next thing we had was the Elite versus Danny Limelight and Varsity Blondes. This is the one we're going to want to spend some time talking about. This was a fun match. Their heel, Kenny Omega, before the match, he was there with the Young Bucks, and Don Callis told the Bucks, he's like, no, I like your intro. You guys are special. You deserve to do your own thing. Why don't you just wait and do your entrance separately from Kenny? And then They came out. Justin Roberts announced him. Kenny comes out. And then Don Callis is like, Justin, take a hike. You know, you don't deserve to announce this. And so everybody thinks, you know, world tag team champions. Everybody assumes that it's going to be the, you know, Young Bucks. But it wasn't. He announced the Good Brothers. They came out instead. And I really enjoyed this match. Danny Limelight got in a ton of offense. He genuinely gave the Super Elite a run for their money during the match. After the Super Elite won, like we all knew they would. You know what I mean? Because, like, they're on a roll. But they won. After they won, Moxley came out. And he brawled. And then Penta and Ray came out. And then the Young Bucks. And it was insane. It was chaotic. The Young Bucks were able to twin super kick the Bucks. It was amazing. The chaos and confusion. It was just fantastic. It was such a cool way to get everybody some time on screen. Further the feuds. I loved the idea of the feuding between the Bucks and the Lucha Bros because I want them to get a chance to chase for those titles too. You know, I mean, maybe
So Dusty, I think you got a little excited there. You did the Young Bucks super kick the Young Bucks. Was that the
Lucha Bros? I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, Young Bucks.
If anyone could super kick the Young Bucks, it's the Young Bucks.
Yeah, no, that would have been amazing. Right. Yeah, but no, I apologize. It was the Lucha Bros who were able to twin super kick the Bucks.
I had this right. Yeah, that's all. I wasn't. Yeah. Keep, please.
And but yeah, it was just. I like I say, I hope that they get to chase the Young Bucks for the titles. I think the obvious next story for the titles is probably going to be SCU, you know, with their stipulation that if they lose, they break up. But everything's still up in the air right now. It's genuinely hard to predict what could happen and opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. And they focused more on tag teams this week in general because
they really did.
The other segment that we haven't talked about yet, I don't know if you were swinging back around to that, is the Inner Circle is going to have a tag team event next week. And Proud and Powerful have kind of made the point of saying we're supposed to be the tag team in this. So it will be very interesting to see who comes out of that. And if it's not Proud and Powerful, I'm flipping the table.
They called Sammy called Jericho out for being a little tag team slut and said that he was pairing with everybody. There is an amazing moment though. He's like, what are you going to do? You're going to tag with Snoop now? And Jericho's like, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, like if anyone's gonna tackle Snoop, it's gonna be Chris Jericho. So,
but it was classic, and they're going to have a tag team, like a fatal 4-way tag team match to see who the tag team will be. And Proud and Powerful really stepped up in the moment. That they seemed the obvious case, and for as much as I like them, also Sammy is involved with Jake Hager. And their tag team is Sammy Hager. So I kind of love that. And, I mean, like, how can you deny a cool name like Sammy Hager? Like, they need to be a tag team.
It's true. That does need to be a thing.
It's so good. And also, next week, we'll get to see TH2 and Chaos Theory, Luther and Serpentico, up against Adam Page and the Dark Order. So that'll be, it's -1 Brody Jr.'s birthday celebration, so it'll be really exciting to see what happens. And then we also had some announcements for the Beach Break on February the 3rd. Randomly during the Dynamite debut of the Waiting Room, they showed a recap of the Rosa-Britt Baker feud, the Thunder Rosa-Britt Baker feud, and then a video from Thunder Rosa, and she says that Britt and her big nose like to get in people's business, but soon she'll actually have to wrestle. And that Tony told Rosa that Rosa versus Britt Baker is such a big deal, it needed a bigger stage than just an ordinary Dynamite, so it's going to be at the first Beach Bash on February the 3rd. Britt just went absolutely mental with denial, but it was good. She was so excited. She's saying that Tony told her she didn't have to wrestle. I love the whole thing. She is perfect in this role. I think that this is going to be a match that people aren't prepared to be as great as it's going to be, but in a company of great wrestlers, I think they're going to impress everybody that night and rise into that echelon. Like if we've studied Lucha, we know what Thunder Rosa can do, but she hasn't got the chance to do that on a national stage like this before and play out the full feud. She's had some amazing matches, the best women's matches they've ever had, but to get to play out the feud on stage is going to be incredible, and that's what I am most looking forward to in AEW right now. They did so much where she, rubbed the makeup off, where they poured her and Rebel poured the water on Rosa's face and rubbed all her makeup off and told her she didn't belong. And their Ruda work is just phenomenal. And Thunder Rosa is playing it perfectly. You really felt indignant on her behalf when they poured that water on and rubbed the makeup off.
Yeah.
It felt like it was personal.
Oh, yeah. It's like a superhero identity. I feel like we talk about wrestlers as superheroes all the time. And, of course, gear is part of that, but face paint for Thunder Rosa is very much part of her persona.
Absolutely.
And that is almost like someone taking a mask off.
It is, yeah.
It's very, very similar. So you hit the jugular when you mess with Thunder Rosa and her face paint.
That is, in fact, the nuclear option. If you want the feud to go nuclear, that is kind of, I feel you go after either her family or her face paint. And, we can save the family for the next.
Yeah, well, they still got till February the 3rd. Who knows what we
they got
next
time.
week,
They got time. But it sounds like Britt Baker want to die. Like she is finding her
I know.
right now.
She's got a death wish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need is Rosa should get all New Jack on it and ask Rebel, hey, you want to see a dead body? And then, just fly at her. Exciting stuff. I'm very excited for everything they've got going. They really do have like a very personal, it is like a blood feud. And it is so good right now. And I was disappointed it didn't get on the New Year's Smash Dynamite. But honestly, it did deserve a more important spot than it had. And so if it was going to be delayed, it didn't hurt that they've had the time to build it up and really make it shine. So,
it had a glorious side effect. I mentioned this when we were talking off the air. They had more women's content. They now are running, I believe the number I heard, and I haven't counted this out loud, was 4 different women's feuds on the Dynamite storyline. So, maybe not all in the same episode, but that's still...
in the waiting room episode, that it furthered the feud between Jade Cargill and Red Velvet, and it furthered the feud with Cody and Jade Cargill and Brandy. And it did a lot. There was a lot going on. And so it was interesting. The editing was choppy. It was a recorded episode. And so I feel like that's why the Thunder Rosa segment was so jarring all of a sudden. But everything else about it was solid gold. It was just a very jarring transition. And I'm so excited to see where all this goes. Everything is so exciting. We have Serena Deeb in the NWA women's titles picture. Tay Conti, that match was phenomenal. If you definitely check that out. Yeah, there's just so much going on in AEW right now that they're finally catching up on and getting right. And it's exciting to see it week to week. And the most exciting part is that the crown jewel of this seems to be Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker.
All right. So again, don't forget to check out luchacentral.com for the results of Dynamite and Dark every week. Speaking of luchacentral.com, one of luchacentral.com's partner sites or partner organizations, Mass Republic, has some stories out this week. Brendan, we're going to hand it off to you, and you can share more about these stories.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a couple of really big stories and then one small interesting follow-up. So I'm gonna start with, we got Kevin to give us a statement on the animation gig. So we will be playing that in a second here, but we have some thoughts on Demente, I believe is how he said it, and the animation style, and I mean he's just he's genuinely excited to have a group working with him that is so passionate about the culture of Lucha Libre, something we talk a lot about here on the show. Like, it's a very unique thing. So to have an animation company that's on board with that seems really good. And,
yeah, it's very exciting.
We can slip that right now. It's one.
It was really exciting to be able to announce to the world our new production pact with Demente Animation Studios in Mexico last week. This is a deal we put together towards the end of last year, but we finally were able to announce it. And Demente is the fastest growing animation studio in Mexico. They are currently the third largest animation studio in the country and have more than 100 animators on staff. They have been working on shows like Rick and Morty, Sesame Street, and a whole bunch of others. Everything from kids shows to young adult shows, I guess. Feature films they're now working on, animated feature films. And so it's a very unique deal where Master Public's intellectual property, our ideas and concepts for entertainment, will be put together with Demente, and Demente will be creating television series pitches based off of our content, and then we will go out and work with them collectively to sell the content to platforms or studios. And so it's really exciting. We have one project already that we have started to work on, and we look forward to kind of bringing this to the world. Hopefully later in 2021 there'll be news about it, and with any luck maybe people will get to see it in 2022 or 2023, depending. And this is just the beginning. We look forward to working on a number of projects with Demente and building that relationship. And for us, being with trying to develop content in the Lucha Libre genre, it just really made sense for us to work with a great studio in Mexico that understood, appreciated, and loved Lucha Libre like we do. And so I think that, especially with this first series, people are going to be really surprised at the kind of unique approach to blending Mexican animation and history with the other elements that make this show very unique. And we'll be able to share more soon, hopefully right here on the show.
And then during the week, we had some people running with the story about Fenix's copyright struggle. And those of you who are less familiar with what Master Public does and who they are, they are representative of these luchadors that are trying to branch out, particularly into the United States. So he has Master Public, and Kevin with Master Public has dealt a lot with this issue and with the issues of copyright and whose identity is owned, and I mean navigating because AAA is a company that has names that they own, which is why we have Penta L0M or Pentagon Junior or Pentagon Dark, depending on what show we're talking about. And I mean, that's only getting more complicated, but that's a story for Dustin to talk about, not me.
Yeah.
So he wanted to go on a little more of an education. It's very, very interesting stuff. So we can actually play that clip as well right now.
Okay, so because a lot of people have been asking, I wanted to give kind of a direct update about the Rey Fenix trademark and what's really going on with it. Because earlier this week, a number of what I would call secondary wrestling websites were reporting kind of a, scandalous headline about Rey Fenix potentially having to change his name, which is absolutely not true, and showed that, one, those websites don't know much about trademark process, and also did not bother to reach out and ask questions before reporting. So, I wanted to kind of give a direct update for that. The trademark process is one that takes quite some time, and more often than not, a trademark is rejected the first time you submit for it. One of the reasons that the Rey Fenix trademark is potentially being contested is because of the existing trademark for the name Fenix that LLFMV hold. And if you look at that trademark, you'll see just as well that the first time that trademark was submitted, it was rejected. The rejection process does not mean you cannot get the trademark. It essentially means that there is additional information needed, or that the USPTO attorney feels that there are cases that show why you shouldn't be granted the trademark. However, it's extremely common that with the right evidence and the right understanding that you can prove that you actually should be granted the trademark. Mass Republic holds over a dozen trademarks, and I think maybe one or two of them kind of was smooth sailing from the very beginning. Most of them were rejected for one reason or another. Sometimes it's as simple as needing an address or needing another translation of a word, or they want a different version of the specimen showing how it's being used. But more often than not, been able to get the trademarks granted. Now, there are some really interesting specific things about the Rey Fenix rejection that part of this case. Oftentimes, when the USPTO attorney does not understand, or I guess isn't very familiar with the genre or the industry, there will be a rejection. So one of the reasons that this trademark is saying it's going to be rejected is because essentially the attorney is saying, well, a wrestling name is not a trademark. And while in the general sense of the word, you would not normally consider somebody's name that they use in wrestling a trademark, in the industry, that is how it's used. And obviously, you see all the time WWE trademarking names, other people trademarking names. So right off the bat, the rejection there, I am very confident is going to be dismissed, because there is a ton of cases to prove that you can trademark a wrestling name. Now, one of the other rejections, or reason for rejection, mentions that it's not stating whether it's the name of a real person, and that no real person agreed to have their name trademarked. Again, not exactly accurate. When Lucha Underground filed for trademarks for whoever they're trademarking, they had to prove that they had the rights to do that. Great. But in the case where somebody is trademarking their own name and they are marking on the form that this is their property and they alone own it, then there are no other documents that need to be filled out. So again, there are just some basics of processing of a trademark that weren't really handled correctly when it comes to this. So the other notion, the big notion that I want to explain, is that just because somebody doesn't have a trademark does not mean they can't be using that name. It only becomes an issue if somebody else has that trademark and that somebody else wants to come and stop you from using it. So just because the USPTO has not granted Rey Fenix a trademark on the name, just because anybody doesn't have a trademark on the name, you may use that name provided nobody else is using it, and provided nobody else is going to come after you or claim that they have the rights to that name. So the idea that Rey Fenix would have to change his name in AEW is completely false, and it's a misinformed opinion. So that's basically where the Rey Fenix trademark name is. He has officially filed for the trademark. The trademark is in progress. He does not have it granted yet, but that's A-okay. And there is nothing that indicates right now that he needs to change his name. Even if the trademark doesn't get granted in the end, he does not necessarily have to change his name, because that's it works. So If anybody ever has any questions about trademarks, especially those related to Masked Republic, you may go ahead and contact us, legal@maskedrepublic.com. Go ahead and write us if you have questions about our trademarks, or message us off of the contact form on our website. But we make it very easy to find us, and if you've got questions about our trademarks, come and find us.
And then, I mean, huge thank you to Kevin for giving us so much of his time. We joke about his cheese sandwiches and all that other thing, but he's made the show possible. He gives us a lot of information. We're really happy that he decided to give us some pretty good and informative statements on this sort of thing. He did not come back to me on this last one, which I felt like was the biggest news, but I'm willing to give him a pass on that because he's probably dealing with a lot of stuff to go with that, which is they officially announced that Roosh and Dragon Lee are part of the Masked Republic brand, and Sports Illustrated covered that this week. So huge deal. Like I don't remember if we mentioned that the signing last week, but the Sports Illustrated part of this is where I really wanted to go with this. They're huge steps to be acknowledged in a kind of that public place, and people all around the world are hearing about Masked Republic and what they're doing, and that makes it more possible for us to have things like this. Maybe we will have more luchadors coming forward. Maybe Australian Suicide can actually get some help there. I don't know. I'm just throwing names out there because we talked about them already. So did you guys have any thoughts on any of these topics with the Masked Republic, or?
I'm especially excited about their work with Dragon Lee and Roosh, and that's mostly from a merchandising perspective. We've seen some of the amazing things that Masked Republic, their association with Hot Topic, they have the ability to come up with some amazing designs. And like, I've been a Dragon Lee fan for a long time, and it's hard to find cool Dragon Lee shirts unless you're able to just catch him and get something cool from him. And so to have that availability in merchandising, I mean, like, if this leads to Dragon Lee socks, I must have Dragon Lee socks. Give them to me. And, like, I'm so excited for what it could mean. And I think that anything that merchandises them, obviously, anything you wear with your favorite luchador on it, that's a billboard for them. That advertises them to other people. And the more people that hear the name Dragon Lee and become aware of him, the better off I think he is. It's interesting that he's back to Dragon Lee again, too. I hope that maybe, Masked Republic had some involvement there. I don't know. But he was Ryu Lee for a short time, and now that seems to have been resolved. So very interesting, and we'll see what goes on with that. But I'm so excited about the signing to Legends of Lucha Libre and Masked Republic that they'll be able to help merchandise them, and they're helping to negotiate their contract and make sure they're getting paid what they're worth. And Roosh, allegedly WWE, wasn't. That his price was an issue between he and WWE.
Too high. So.
And I don't know.
But we don't have that official signing yet, too, on the ROH side. So we don't know if it is still going to be with ROH, or could be somewhere else. But, that does leave for a lot more speculation as to where both him and Roosh may go.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the good news of Roosh being with Masked Republic is that Roosh is one of the central figures in Ingobernables, which is one of the biggest brands out there in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So we can actually start seeing more Ingobernables merchandise in America, which has me excited.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. I specifically liked Kevin's insight on trademarking and the kind of the complications with that. That's the economics lesson / business and industry lesson part of this show, because it was really insightful to learn about some of the marks may be rejected. And ultimately, you know what, Kevin, he called out news sites that don't verify information. And so if you heard the end of it, he said, hey, anybody, you want some clear information? make sure you contact Mass Republic. They're more than happy to provide accurate information. So, a big word up to him, like, for doing that, because, I think too, it's a huge, I think, pet peeve in general in wrestling. And I think everyone somewhat, does this as well. And I think we try and do our best here on the show to be very open about what we hear as speculation and, citing where we hear pieces of information and try and vet very clearly. But that's also why we're fortunate to have, communications with people like Kevin, who are very closely involved in these trademark processes. It's what he does. And, at times, you can lead down this, road on speculation as to what's going to happen, based off of more of a business dealing, like we just did right now a little bit.
Yeah.
We've done that just in the last few minutes. However, I think it's how you frame that information and how you can be very accurate about a trademark being rejected, but if you don't do the research and figure out why, now you're just leveraging a piece of information to kind of manipulate into gossip.
Yes. And for those people that are less confident about reaching out to Kevin, hey, you ask us, we will ask the question and put it on the air for you. So, I mean, blatant self-promotion, obviously, but still, you have no excuses. If you're listening to this, you have a direct line, so we can get you the information you need, even if you can't find him on Twitter or other social media.
Well, thank you, Brendan, for sharing some of that Mass Republic news. As Dusty mentioned, Mass Republic has merchandise available on HotTopic.com and in select Hot Topic stores, of course, through Mass Republic's own website. So make sure you check out Mass Republic on social media. And again, if you are looking for Lucha Libre merchandise, and a variety of just cool, merch, you can check out Mass Republic. Up next, we got This Week in NXT. And we got a lot of Lucha Libre content last week. We didn't get a whole lot this week. The only primarily Lucha related match we got was the opening bout of this week's episode, which was Candice LeRae versus Shotzi Blackheart. And this is a program that's been going on for months. But we got a one-on-one match between Candice and Shotzi. Of course, they have great chemistry, but we've seen this. We've been seeing this for months now. So some of the luster has lost its wear. And again, with Candice LeRae being accompanied by Indy Hartwell, that there's distractions that are going to come up, and that's exactly what happened. Towards the end of the match, it looks like Shotzi she went up to the top rope, was going to the top rope for a senton, before Indy distracted her, and then Candice was able to leverage that for a spinning net breaker for the win. So, Candice has won this bout. It seems like this program may be somewhat over for now, because after the match, Shotzi said that she is now putting her focus into the Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, the very first Women's Tag Team Classic that's happening. And she announced that she was interested in participating and was looking for a partner. And none other than Ember Moon showed up and told her that she would be willing to team with her. So right now we had 4 teams announced for the Women's Dusty Classic, Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon being one of them, and Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm being another. So this is very interesting because Mercedes Martinez has just recently come back to NXT from a short stint on Raw with as part of Retribution. She's one of the lucky ones that got out.
She got out. Yeah.
Dodge that bullet.
Yeah, she dodged that bullet. She is back in NXT, and she will be teaming up with Toni Storm as part of the Women's Dusty Classic. So that is going to be great. But first, they got to go through the Men's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. And the entire bracket for the men's tournament was announced. And a very interesting aspect of the men's tournament is that we will see both Lucha House Party and Legado del Fantasma as part of this tournament.
I'm in.
Yes. I mean, lots of great teams. I mean, I got to throw out also in there that we had a debuting team of MSK, which is the team formerly known as the Rascals in Impact Wrestling. I'm going to keep calling them Dez and Wentz because I forgot what their WWE names are. And I
One of
kind
them's Wes, right?
Wes and Nash,
Wes.
I want to say.
Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds right. Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. I like Dez and Wentz. But they appeared and won their first match on NXT, and so now we know what happened to the duo. I'm very glad that they stayed together and that they were introduced as part of this tournament. But as far as what we see with the Luchadors as part of this tournament, as soon as next week, we are going to see Lucha House Party face their first competitors, Imperium.
Ooh.
And then, yeah, I know. That's going to be a tough order. On the other hand, we have Legado del Fantasma. Their first round bout will be against the Bollywood Boys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that match has not been announced yet, so we don't know when we're going to be getting that. Very likely maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. It looks like they're trying to get through about 2 of these first round matches every week, but it may vary throughout the next few weeks, so we will see. But next week, Imperium versus Lucha House Party, first round match in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. So, you know, Dusty, you mentioned that they have Lucha House Party at the arena kind of always ready in gear. It could be because, you know, they do a hop, skip, and a jump away to the Capitol Event Center to wrestle in NXT.
Well, why not eat for free backstage and catering? Those guys need a lot of protein. It's hard to get that much steak when you're going to a restaurant.
Yes, but again, we talk about continuity. We are seeing at least the presence of Lucha House Party on Raw, but they're actually wrestling in NXT. And I don't mind that. I mean, I would love to see them wrestle on Raw, but is it really wrestling? Is it kind of, sort of? It just, I don't know. It varies. It's a hit and a miss.
Yeah.
So, but again, Lucha House Party versus Imperium, you know, former NXT UK tag champions, like who?
Baller match.
Yes.
So those of you that don't know, because Imperium is a really well kept secret over on NXT UK, that's another technical team.
Yeah.
And, so like this is gonna be a good styles matchup where you have the more bombastic high flying style that the Lucha House Party incorporates against the grounded, well-rounded Imperium style, which is a classic Lucha matchup. So this should be a very interesting story, and we might be able to sneak in some traditional Lucha. I mean, we can't say that too loud because...
But the odds look good. NXT actually has a level and respect of wrestling. This is, out of all the WWE products, NXT is the wrestling show.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's very true.
So, yeah. Now, also an interesting aspect about these two brackets is that they're on the same side of the bracketology, as you'd call it. So technically, the winner of these two matches will face each other in the second round. So we may see, depending on, again, Lucha House Party versus Imperium is a pretty tough order. However, if we do see Lucha House Party win, they could possibly reface Legado del Fantasma again. And we saw this already in storyline a few weeks ago, leading up to Gran Metalik versus Santos Escobar at New Year's Evil. So it is very possible, storyline-wise, they're going to face each other again. But who knows? That's also an interesting aspect about this tournament, is there could be some dark horses that come through, or there's some really, really good matchups in which you don't know who's going to win.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part, is it's impossible to call a winner for these. They've really mastered that suspense, and it's very exciting.
Making you believe that it can happen. That is a critical thing that makes NXT's product so much better. Is you don't know, for just seeing Lucha House Party on the card does not mean that you know what's going to happen. Unlike on Raw. Oh, look, there's Lucha House Party. They weren't even introduced. They just came back from the commercial. They're in the ring. I guess we know that whoever they introduce right now is going to win.
Yeah, that's super true.
Yeah. Sorry, I just irritated myself by even saying that.
No, I get it. But there's the silver lining of their presence on NXT. So, if you want to see Lucha House Party next week, make sure you stay tuned to NXT. Something else that NXT does very, very well are their promo packages. And we were blessed with another great promo package, this time of Raquel Gonzalez, really highlighting her dominance in the NXT women's division, toting on her recent victory against Rhea Ripley, and a very good point about how the end of last year, the end of 2019, was Rhea Ripley winning the NXT Women's Championship from Shayna Baszler, and finally, claiming that championship. Well, technically she kicked off 2021 by losing to Rhea Ripley. So I love kind of seeing that full circle acknowledged about, new year, new me. Nuh-uh. Not this time. And it does seem like Raquel Gonzalez is challenging Io Shirai for the NXT Women's Championship. She directly called out Io. She has her sights set on what's next, and it seems like if they're putting this much effort, especially into her wins and this promo package, it looks like we know who Io is going to be facing next. So no wrestling from Raquel Gonzalez this week. However, we still have our presence on TV, and again, the story is building. It seems like this is the road for Raquel Gonzalez beginning of 2021. And if anything, I'm actually very excited about this. I think that Io's kind of faced some of the same competitors over and over for a good portion of 2020. So I feel like this is going to be a very fresh match.
It also is really nice to see Raquel do that, because that was the one question mark on her. I knew she's a fantastic athlete. She's naturally gifted and physically dominant when she's in the ring, but she hasn't done a lot other than look really impressive while other people have talked in front of the camera for the majority of her time in NXT. So seeing her cut a really nice promo like this was very exciting. I mean, I'm never going to not say she has star written all over her, but it just really reinforced my belief that she is ready to be a standout in, as we've already said, the best women's division in all of wrestling. So, I mean, if that's not star-making stuff right there, then what is, really?
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And again, it's the credit to NXT promo work. The way that they film and capture their promos is amazing. There was also another fantastic promo, very dark, very cryptic, from Scarlett, and highlighting Karrion Kross's win over Damian Priest. I mean, they do it in a way that it just cinematic feel, but also very authentic and really drawing. So, big kudos to NXT. They keep me watching every week, one way or another. But I feel like NXT is coming into a very interesting chapter now with the dual tag team tournaments, with of course all of the chaos surrounding the NXT Men's Championship, and of course lining up a new challenger for the NXT Women's Championship. So make sure you stay tuned to luchacentral.com, where you can get your NXT results as well. So much stuff on luchacentral.com. Up next, though, Dusty has an update on AAA, specifically a story we brought to you several weeks ago about their YouTube page.
Yes, the YouTube and Facebook are back if you live in Mexico. Or if you bookmarked your favorite AAA links from YouTube, you can still click on those links and they'll work. Like, at least for the time being. They uploaded Auto Lucha's show, rather, over the weekend, and even if you had the link, it did not work in the United States. And so, who knows? Maybe it's just a temporary oversight, but yeah, if you have those links and you want to watch AAA, use them now. And if you need those links, I wouldn't be the dashing one if I didn't have some of those links. So contact me if you need them, and we'll give you that information at the end of the show. But that's really the only AAA news right now. There's going to be an indie show in Texas, allegedly in February, that's being branded as a AAA show, but then people were saying, well, how does that affect the lawsuits? And now I guess it's just AAA wrestlers being booked through the AAA office, and nobody makes any money in America that way. I didn't understand the whole thing, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully this gets resolved soon. But in the meantime, like I say, if you've got a link, you can head on over to YouTube and watch your favorite matches while you still can.
So I have some indie wrestling insight on why they would do this that way.
Okay.
It is because wrestlers are eternally optimistic. When COVID was first announced, I still see all of my booker friends still announcing shows 3-4 months out, and then they would wait until the absolute last minute before they would cancel and refund tickets, because they were putting everything forward under the hope that they would be able to get everything smoothed out. So as it stands right now, AAA is probably thinking they're not going to make money, but they're hoping that the curve will magically happen and something will happen to allow them into that spot, and then everything will be ready and the show can just roll right into the place it belongs. So
I believe is this a show happening February 13th.
Yes, it is.
Okay, yes. So that is being run by 915-656. It's a promotion based out of Texas. It's going to be in Odessa, but they are a fairly popular, well-known promotion in the Texas area.
Yeah, they're run out of Juarez, so it's actually a Mexican company holding an American show, and that's part of the money thing, so that they're not making money in America. Yeah. That's part of the workaround. So it's really interesting when you get into it.
And they do that. That's part of the name. The 915-656 is the two, U.S. and the Mexico area codes. And so, if you look at the poster, you see the headliner apparently is Psycho Clown and Murder Clown versus Tejano Jr. and Black Taurus. But on there,
man,
you see,
I can see some
Conan's
dead clowns.
Yeah, on here, Daga's pictures on there. I mean, of course, card subject to change. Shout out to Mr. Iguana, who's also featured on here. So yes,
Instagram, TikTok.
Yes, this will be interesting to see. But yes, it doesn't surprise me. I can understand exactly what Brennan is saying as far as, advertising it and see what happens. But also this promotion is really popular and well known in the Texas area. So it doesn't surprise me, the fact that they do this pretty often. And so it sounds like a fantastic show.
It really does.
Again, that's Promoción 915-656. You can find them. I found this on Facebook. So you can check them out there.
Yeah. They put up matches once in a while too.
That is the challenge. They do lots of live events, but they don't seem to post a lot on social media or YouTube. And they have great shows from the looks of their cards, but it's hard to see it if you
they're driving their ticket sales up. They put those high promises and they only show highlights from the really good matches, which is great for me because I love to see really good highlights from really good matches. But
yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds there.
Well, Dusty, you did such a good job at letting us know the updates of AAA. Why don't you lead us into this week in Lucha Libre history?
Yeah, that's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by birthday boy Pep Carrera. He had a birthday this week. Happy birthday to Pep.
Birthday, Pep.
Feliz cumpleaños.
Yes. And every day, Pep writes This Day in Lucha Libre, and it is full of information, birth dates, anniversaries, amazing videos, match of the day, everything. And it's all about Lucha Libre, and that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week I chose January the 11th, 2020, that far-off year, when the Mexi squad of Bandito, Flamita, and Rey Orders won the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Championship after beating Villain Enterprises, the team of Marty Scurll, Brody King, and Flip Gordon, at Ring of Honor Saturday night at Center Stage in Atlanta, Georgia. This was a great match. The crowd was really hot. They were really appreciative. They understood Lucha. They even tossed money into the ring post-match. Like, it was really cool. It was nice to see the crowd so engaged. It made me long for when we had crowds. So hopefully we see something similar in the future. Villain Enterprises were always really good in these trios matches, but the Mexi squad were the best challengers they ever had. And this was one of the most exciting title changes in a long time for me in Ring of Honor that I didn't really expect. And that would only be shortly superseded in the future when Rush gets the title back from PCO. So a lot of Ring of Honor stuff coming up too to keep checking out. What did you pick this week, Brendan?
So I went for something that was authentically, I mean, get it, the early part of 2020 seems like forever ago, but
I know.
This week I chose January 15th, 1998. Oh. And this was Rey Mysterio winning the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, after beating Legends of Lucha Libre superstar Juventud Guerrera on the second episode of WCW, which was being filmed at the Lakeland Civic Center in Lakeland, Florida. So
yeah, that's back before we knew Thunder was going to be terrible.
Well, so I was watching, remembering the early episodes are terrible. They put their A-list wrestlers over to get output. This was a 10-minute match. I mentioned that when we were planning this, which is shocking for a Thunder because, I mean, you know, you can't have Thunder in Paradise ad every 5 minutes if you have a 10-minute ad.
Yeah.
So you got 10 minutes of these two guys really when they were like, Juvi's still wearing the mask. It's still the Rey Mysterio that is so lightning fast that if you blink, you literally miss him leaving the ring. Like, I mean, it happened to me again in this match. I looked away long, grabbed my drink, and by the time I looked back, some sort of dive had already happened, and they were sprawled out on the outside of the ring, and I had to rewind. It was just crazy. It was great to see this. It was genuinely a good match that was on Thunder. If you ever need the answer to that trivia question, January 15th, 1998, Rey Mysterio won the championship from the Juventud Guerrera. It's a legitimately strong, great match between legends of the sport, as well as Juventud is part of the Legends of Lucha Libre brand, so you can legitimately call him a legend no matter how crazy you think he might be. Miranda, what did you go with?
That's a fact, you know. Like that's not even
it's just facts.
That is a fact.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
So, speaking of Legends of Lucha Libre, I picked January 12th, 2018, when Legends of Lucha Libre stars the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr., as they were calling him, and Rey Fenix, won the Impact World Tag Team titles after beating LAX, Santana, and Ortiz. This was in Mexico City. And I picked a few reasons. One, we don't typically have a lot of Impact matches on This Week in Lucha Libre. Or in this day in Lucha Libre. We just don't have a lot of rich history in Impact Wrestling, and that is just a fact in Lucha Libre. But this period, especially having LAX and the Lucha Brothers both working with the company, is a precursor to what we would see them do in AEW. And so there is a link to clips of this match, not the full match, on Impact's YouTube page, but The crowd there was really energetic. Josh Matthews, his commentary, I don't know if he had a sore throat and was working through being sick, or legit just lost his voice from his level of excitement. But I thought I
He
found
was
that
excited, yeah.
I thought it was pretty infectious. And so this match itself was, I mean, what you expect from Santana and Ortiz and the Lucha Brothers, very fast pace, lots of quick movements and quick sequences, and you get a kick out of both on both sides from signature moves, and so that really did leave you wondering who was going to win. I believe this match came about right after they had competed in another match. So they had already won or competed in their match and then jumped into this one. So you can tell too they were pretty exhausted, but the energy that they had throughout this still was amazing. And it really just highlighted things that you were going to see later on. If you were going back into 2018, and knowing what we know now about their work and performance in AEW, but also the continued work that they had, especially the Lucha Bros in AAA. It also feels like, you know, Impact kind of missed an opportunity to capitalize on both of these teams, because, you know, AEW has been able to do that in just over the year that they have existed, and a lot of that is due to the emphasis on tag team wrestling and the importance that they place of it. Also, I think having more storylines and the fact that, you know, you have these storylines that weave in and out. I think that's been a challenge for Impact. But, you know, I think too, this is a great match to watch. It also showed the potential, that these two teams had at that time. And also, I mean, it is, as much as I kind of give Impact the work here as far as them missing the boat, they also were ahead of the game. You can kind of say that as well, and giving these two teams an opportunity. So
they had those two before everybody else in America did.
Yes. And that's very, very true. I think it depends on how you look at it, the glass half full or the glass half empty type of thing. But this is a great match. It does let me wonder, you know, why we don't see them compete more in AEW. Or hopefully one day we have a build up to a Lucha Bros, proud and powerful match, because we know that they can go. We know they can have a fantastic match, and even though we have seen it before, I think they can do things that we haven't seen yet from them and make it different.
Absolutely.
That was my pick for this week in Lucha Libre history.
It's great. So hey guys, since we've been talking about Lucha Central this whole time, if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it really is time to do it. LuchaCentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of this, it's still free. And I think it's going to stay free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Speaking of contests, they did have the end-of-year awards voting going on. I believe the results are going to be up by the time this show is on the air. But I'm not positive on that. Either way, we will be talking about that in an upcoming episode as well.
Yeah, and if you all want to listen to our end-of-year awards, the Lucha Central Weekly podcast end-of-year awards, those episodes are up. You can find them on luchacentral.com, or you can find them on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, Speaker, Podbay. So you can listen to our nominees and picks for the year 2020. So make sure you...
YouTube as well.
Yes, and YouTube.
Yeah.
So make sure you check those out. And well, yeah, we will definitely be talking about those when they post. So that could be as soon as next week's episode. But before we get to that, Dusty, Any New Japan updates?
Yeah, just a quick update. The New Japan Cup 2021 is coming this March. 2020, we saw it delayed to late summer, but this year it's going to be in its traditional placement in the spring again. It will be at Korakuen Hall, and, this is a pretty intense tournament. It starts March the 1st before the tournament heads towards the finals in Sendai, March the 20th and 21st. So we've got that to look forward to. Participants will be announced shortly. Hopefully there'll be some lucha names there that we'll recognize.
Right. There you go. Up next, we're talking some Impact Wrestling. I know I just mentioned them a few minutes ago. It's because that's my thing. That's what I do on the show, is talk about Impact Wrestling. But that's because we got a very big event coming up. First, though, I'm going to go back to what happened this past Saturday at Genesis. This was an Impact Plus exclusive, and the main event of this event was an I Quit match, Willie Mack versus Moose. And this was a little bit of a culmination of a feud that they've been having for quite some time. The good news is that Willie Mack won. However, the way he won, I don't know if he was so happy about it. But in this match, again, it was an I Quit match. So in order to win, you had to make your opponent say, I quit. Both men were very hard hitting throughout the entirety of this match. And someone else noticed that, that was Impact World Champion Rich Swann. He came out during the match to actually confront Moose. And he told him, you know what? If you stop, if you forfeit this match or you say I quit, I will give you a future opportunity at the Impact World Championship. And that just played right into what Moose wanted. So Moose went in the mic, said, I quit. And that was it. So, Willie Mack did win. However, not necessarily, I think, in the way he wanted to as far as really earning that win, but a win nonetheless. So we are going to see Moose face Rich Swann sometime in the future. Hasn't been announced when, but Rich Swann's going to be kind of busy because this Saturday, January 16th, Impact Wrestling presents Hard to Kill. Now, this has been a big event that's been, talked about all over because this is going to be the first time we see Kenny Omega in an Impact ring. Kenny Omega is teaming up with the Good Brothers to face Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. This has been, really one of the biggest crossovers in all of pro wrestling, and we're going to see it all come to a head this Saturday. So it is very big news for Impact. To be honest, I have my kind of doubts on how, this match is going to come out. Kenny's first appearance on Impact Wrestling had huge boosted ratings. However, those ratings have since pretty much steadily declined since then. So I feel like there's a little bit of momentum that has died down. We did see the Good Brothers on Dynamite this week, but I don't know if there's still as much buzz around this as there was when it was first happening. And some of it, I think, was the news and other things happening. So, and the big thing is who's going to win. It's one thing to have Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers win, but think about this, who, say, for example, Kenny Omega pins Rich Swann in an Impact ring. That would be insane. Or vice versa, Rich Swann pinning Kenny Omega in an Impact ring, and what that means as far as future storylines. Or is this as far as we're going to see it? Who knows? But that is pretty much going to be the main event of Hard to Kill. Two other matches that Lucha Libre fans will want to keep an eye out on is a triple threat match for the X Division Championship. Current champion Manic, aka TJP, will be facing Chris Bay and Rohit Raju. Both of these men have had their hands on the X Division Championship at some point throughout 2020, so they're trying to gun for another reign. And again, all three of these wrestlers are fantastic in the ring. They're going to, I only imagine great things happening And again, if you are a big fan of the high flying lucha libre, fast paced style of match, the X Division definitely brings that to you. So keep an eye out on that. Also happening for the Knockouts Championship, we have Deonna Purrazzo, the champion, facing Taya Valkyrie. And this actually came from the end of year awards for Impact Wrestling. Back in 2019, Taya Valkyrie won that award for Knockout of the Year. And so Deonna Purrazzo claimed that this year for 2020, also claimed Wrestler of the Year as well, which came to a shock for many people, including myself. But that helped fuel some back and forth between Taya and Deonna. This week on Impact, we had Taya face Kimberly, who's an associate of Deonna prior to Hard to Kill. We've also seen this evolution of Su Yung now into this third persona called Susan, who is very much a straight-laced, suit-wearing, very flat-toned person. And so she somehow, though, created a distraction so that Kimberly could get the pin on Taya Valkyrie. But this is a very interesting kind of 180 from Taya, who came into Hard to Kill last year as the Knockouts champion, as the longest reigning Knockouts champion. She was in a triple threat against ODB and Jordan Grace. So now the shoe is on the other foot. Taya's coming in as the challenger. But I think this match in itself is going to be very great. Really the technical style of Deonna Purrazzo versus the hard-hitting lucha libre style of Taya Valkyrie. This is going to be really, really entertaining to watch. I have high hopes for this match.
I do too. Like, anytime Taya gets into the ring, it's always exciting, but it seems like her chemistry and just kind of the electricity between her and Deonna Purrazzo when they get in the ring together is something special. Like, we've seen Taya wrestle in my opinion, she's one of the few women that makes an intergender match look legitimate. Like,
yes,
and so,
absolutely.
But one of the other women that can do that is Deonna Purrazzo. And so we see that harder, rougher edge from these women. And I hope that we see some of the Guerra Loca that we knew from Perros, like the AAA Taya. Yeah. And I think this could be when she pulls it out. I mean, even the pay-per-view name with Hard to Kill, like, that's Taya. And so I really think that this is going to be her night. That Saturday, January 16th, Taya will leave as Knockouts champion.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about this last week about seeing a different side of Taya with her promo wanting to stake a claim in the Era de la Güera in the Knockouts division. And again, it's a 180. She came into 2020 as the Knockouts champion, the longest reigning, and now she's in the chase for the belt again. So I hope that she comes in with this hunger for the title and we see more of that hard edge, because I think that's exactly what she needs in order to really face what Deonna is going to come with her at, because she is very technically sound. And so I think that Taya's really going to have to come with her with a lot more aggression.
Yeah, I do too. Like, we're just, and that goes back to the Perros era too. She was hungrier then. She was more aggressive then. And that's brand new for a lot of the American audience, but that's what all of us that, loved and first knew her in Perros want too. So, like, it's exciting, it's fresh, but it's also a throwback to something we all love. There's so much going on there that I love about the Taya match.
Yes. I'm very interested to talk about throwback, her gear. Her gear during these types of events usually give also a sense of what type of Taya, which version of Taya we are going to see.
Absolutely. She understands the fashion and the importance and the storytelling that gear can provide better than almost anybody. We see that. I mean, she has her own fashion line, Loco Loca, and great stuff going on, Loca by Taya Valkyrie, and so much attention to her look and her not her branding exactly, but like her personal branding. You know,
Yeah, I
like
think
she's
her style.
She does more with that than most do, and that's one of the many facets of the diamond that is Taya, but it's one of the most important that's kind of easily overlooked, is that her look and her gear are so central to her character.
Yeah.
And like you say, you know, it's going to be key, and I'm excited to see what she'll come out in, what kind of Taya we'll get in the ring.
Yes. I'm very interested to see. I'm very excited. But again, I mean, hard to kill. Impact Wrestling, I think, is always flying under the radar. And not that they intend to. It's just,
true.
You know, you look at every week the competition between NXT and AEW, the juggernaut that is WWE on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. So I highly encourage listeners, if you're wanting to see something different outside, of course, the main event, it is going to be momentous. I think it's going to be a really solid match. I mean, seeing, you know, Kenny Omega and the ability he has in the ring versus someone as gifted as Rich Swann. I mean, I think we're going to see some really good sequences. And of course, the Motor City Machine Guns. I mean, one of the best tag teams.
Yeah.
Just out there. So I think that's going to be really, really good. And so I don't want to necessarily downplay any of the wrestling that's going to be happening. But I think that I've been a little critical about this crossover between Impact and AEW because literally the Tonys come every week on Impact TV and they just keep throwing shade. And it's like, why do you keep letting them just throw shade every week? Because they pay you? Like, I'm not going to, you know, like, that's me inviting someone to my house saying, okay, you can come in, you know, pay me $30 and then you can, you know, say all the crap you want to me. No, not in my house. That is not what this is about. So I'm a little reluctant on that. But
if they're buying me a steak dinner, I would put up with 2 hours of abuse. I'm just saying.
You heard him, listeners.
Yeah, you heard him. And put it out there. Buy him a steak dinner.
We're talking like a real steak dinner here. Like a real one here.
No,
don't
you said it. You said it.
Don't you bring me your budget steak.
So again,
I did say it.
Hard to Kill will be happening this Saturday, January 16th. It will be on pay-per-view and I believe the Impact Plus app. And of course, we're going to tell you, of course, I mean, that main event is something that will be talked about one way or another. Our final story of the episode is MLW. And this is a very special edition of Fusion for those of you who don't watch. Again, MLW, you can get it on YouTube. You got to watch it.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good, yes. This week's episode was different. Salina de la Renta, many people know as a manager, wrestling personality, and she is an executive producer over at MLW. Per her contract, she is allowed 3 episodes of Fusion a year in which she pretty much operates and runs herself. And so this week's episode was the first one of 2021. And already from the beginning, you could tell this had Salina de la Renta's mark all over it. The opening was different, only featuring herself and her associates, such as Los Parks, more, and really usually they will have in the intro all of the forms and styles of wrestling that MLW embodies. And the only one you really see this week is Lucha Libre. So,
nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that this has Salina's mark all over it. And so if you are a Lucha Libre fan, this is an episode for you to watch. First off, low key getting a win in like 8 seconds. Well, I think they declared it the fastest win in MLW history. With a huge forearm right to the head of his opponent. Like literally, they had played his entrance music, stopped it, just enough time so that he could win, and they played it again. His entrance and his music was longer than his actual match. So that was, again, pretty fun. Great for low key. Great for low key. Next, though, we had the debut of Mil Muertes, and he is being called Mil Muertes in MLW. So they referenced him being a former Lucha Underground champion, the commentary team. His, gear and look was just phenomenal. He faced Brian Pillman Jr. And in this, a lot of it was Brian Pillman Jr. kind of figuring out how to tackle the beast that is Mil Muertes. And so we saw Pillman really, working and trying to be strategic with his moves, but the power of Mil Muertes was something that was undeniable. So a fairly short match, Mil Muertes getting the win. And it seems like he's going to continue to have a very strong presence in MLW. And he's pretty much being used, though, as a mechanism, a tool by Salina de la Renta. Another interesting thing that happened this episode is that Conan was advertised to be a part of this episode. He was actually going to be on commentary, I believe, during this match. However, Salina showed some footage of her probably in Conan's house. It seems like that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
And pretty much saying that she took care of him. That, he's no longer with the world of the living, per se. And that is very much in line with Salina's now Bruja persona now. She is very much in that world, of course, because she had to, resurrect Mil Muertes. You had to use the magic in that, but very much alluding to Conan no longer being around. Who knows? So he may not even be in that show in Texas in February because Salina.
Yeah.
Now
I've seen dead people at shows before. It's no big deal.
No big
The
deal.
Undertaker. Yeah. I saw him like 3 times.
He was buried alive.
Yeah.
He was, that's
what
true.
else?
Yeah. Kane, burned alive,
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt's going to show back up one day. But, yes, so the big...
I did want to...
Yes, go ahead.
I did want to tie a little thing with this because the timing on this seemed exceptionally convenient. The Mats and Mayhem guys who talk about Lucha Underground were discussing a lot of the Mil Muertes Katrina dynamic on this week's episode 150, which is available now on the Lucha Central Network. So if you watch that episode after having listened to them talking about Katrina and Mil Muertes, you can see a little more insight into the kind of character building they might be doing with Salina de la Renta.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's a Lucha Central podcast, so please give it a listen.
Very, very good point as far as the similarities between the dynamic that he had with Katrina and now with Salina. Another interesting aspect before we get to the main event that seemed to kind of boggle Salina was that it was announced that Promociones Dorados, which is Salina's, I guess, I don't even know. Say that again?
It's her brand.
It's her brand. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is their psychic brand. That's sorry. The words escape me, but it has been acquired. And so that was as much detail as we got about it. So it had been acquired. But Salina didn't know by who. It wasn't revealed. They wanted to get some comments from her and she just seemed pissed.
Yeah.
So now we may not, she may not actually own Promociones Dorado anymore and maybe belong to somebody else. So it'll be very interesting to see that, how it's going to impact some of the wrestlers that are part of the brand, including the wrestlers that were a part of the main event. It was announced last week that Hijo de LA Park and LA Park, Los Parks, were going to face the Von Erichs for the MLW tag team titles. Something, though, that came as kind of a swerve is that there was a special guest referee. Salina had assigned Filthy Tom Lawler as the special guest referee. And that's a pretty big deal because he's been having some beef with the Von Erichs for quite some time.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
some of his best heel work of late.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Well,
true.
speaking of, I think for some people, they weren't a big fan of his officiating. The match started with just chaos. Los Parks just destroying the Von Erichs in the ring. And
before the bell ever rang.
Before the bell ever rang. Now, apparently, this was under Texas Tornado rules, which is also kind of like a lucha type of rule where there's no tags. So, very, very similar in tone with that. However, Los Parks really took advantage of that throughout the match. But really at the beginning, before the bell even rung, Hijo de LA Park and LA Park just really decimated the Von Erichs. LA Park, of course, brought in a stool, not a chair, but a stool into the ring to use that. Tom Lawler was very obvious, doing some quick 3 counts for Los Parks, doing very slow counts to the Von Erichs. At one point having, a wrist injury, couldn't count to 3 because, his wrist gave out. Toward the end of the match, we did see LA Park Jr. Come out. I guess he was hiding underneath the ring the entire time to help create a distraction after Tom Lawler was thrown out of the ring. But he was brought back in to do a quick 3 count. And we have new MLW Tag Champions, Los Parks.
Yeah.
So, this is, pretty big turn, in MLW. And before they matched, they showed clips of, Los Parks. LA Park specifically said if he didn't win a title this year in MLW, he was going to retire. So, looks like we're not going to get an Apuestas match anytime soon with that, because we have new tag champions. But again, there's not a coincidence this happened on a night where Salina de la Renta served as executive producer for this episode of Fusion. So very, very heavy lucha libre content in MLW this week, which is why you gotta watch it. I always say it every week, but highly recommend it if you are looking for a wrestling show that has great technical matches. Of course, this one was very much dedicated to lucha libre, but also some fun storytelling, in a way that isn't super campy or cheesy, but it can also be funny. So, big applause to MLW.
Let me tell you, despite what Hornswoggle will have you believe, being under the ring for an extended period of time is not that fun. Just saying, my heart goes out to you, EO.
I imagine it wasn't that long because they probably edited some of that. So he was there for the majority of the match, which was, at least a solid 10 minutes, but not the entirety of a show. So
you're pushing the limits of comfort already.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually Junior, I think, under the ring. EO was his.
Oh yeah, EO was the partner.
EO
You're
was
right.
the partner,
really cool mask too. I thought that was the coolest EO had looked so far.
That blue design and layout, very.
Oh my gosh,
so
cool! It kind of reminds you of Serpentico in a way, but not exactly. Like there's just something so cool about it.
Yeah. And LA Park Jr. was dressed very much like his dad because somehow they were going to, trying to like a switcheroo, but it's very obvious that Junior and Father have very different body compositions.
Yes.
I just say. I mean, I guess they have.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know what? Look, I know the Fabe. I'm breaking the fade, however. Can we just... I feel like Los Parks came in with this is our plan, because how did they not know Tom Lawler was going to try and swing the match in their favor? That was part of it. I don't, but hey, doesn't matter. Now, does the free bird rule apply with Los Parks? I
don't know. I hope
That'll be interesting to find out in the upcoming weeks. I mean, so if the Parks aren't aren't associated with Salina, then maybe they bring somebody else into the mix too. So yeah, there's lots of interesting potential here.
Again, I mean, when you have technically a trio like you have with Los Parks, ever since the Freebirds and the New Day did it, you always wonder, does that rule apply? And again, you're right. Mm-hmm. If Salina's involved in it, there's going to be loopholes upon loopholes to try to keep these titles on Los Parks for as long as possible.
It's kind of her shtick. That's her thing.
It's her thing. Yeah. I wouldn't say shtick. I would say business approach.
Yeah, that's a nice way to say it. I like
That's
that.
fair.
Because she's
Totally
strictly
fair.
business.
She is. I admire the crap out of her. I admire her. I just love her work. I really, really do. I love the approach that MLW takes with her. I love her involvement with that. Of course, too, you had some Contra in there because, she was found to be the person working along Contra unit to help, hack into MLW system. And I just love it now where she's just like, I'm just going to burn everything down. That's just the right amount of crazy that you need in life to say, if you don't like me, I'll burn you down. Apparently that's the lesson Conan should have learned, but he didn't. Anyways, that is the end of this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. We've made it. Thank you all so much for listening through the show, whether this is your first time or you're returning. Thank you so much. Of course, the Lucha Central Weekly podcast is a proud part of luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Make sure you check out Lucha Central on social media as well. At Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at luchacentral.com on Twitter, and also the YouTube page. As Brendan mentioned earlier, our podcast also is on the Lucha Central YouTube page. You can find other podcasts like Masks, Mats, and Mayhem, interviews, matches, all of that on Lucha Central's YouTube. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yes, I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, all one word, and Facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321. Those are the numbers, 321, and then spelled out T-shirt guy, 321 T-shirt guy, and I am on the Instagram. I log in once in a while. I'm getting better, I swear. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter. That's where I like to hang out, though, is Twitter. You can usually find me pretty easily there.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the # Miranda, # spelled out. That is the # Miranda on Twitter Instagram and Facebook. I am not on Twitter. You guys just reach out to Brendan. He'll pass me the messages along, and that's how I get my Twitter information. Yeah. So we all play a part here on the show. I mean, and speaking of, make sure that if you are listening to the show through your favorite podcast streaming platform like Spotify, Podbay, iTunes, Google Play, you subscribe, rate, and review. So you can subscribe and get notifications every time a new episode drops. You can rate us, give a 5-star rating, and review. So give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. You can give us suggestions and ideas for new topics. You can let us know about things that you like or things that you don't like. That's okay. We got thick skin. We can handle it. Make sure, but you gotta let us know. We never know if you don't tell us. So make sure you do that. And we are always thrilled to have listeners. And also feel free to reach out to us on social media. We try and give a shout out to listeners who leave us messages all the time. So if you want a shout out at the end of the show, make Dusty or Brendan, and we can give you a special shout out for being a listener. So again, that is it. So for Brendan, Barr, and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all, and we will be back next week.
Respetable público.